Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am Nate Couser, and this is the first episode of the Let's Do Lunch series in conjunction with the Pill Center of Baltimore. We are collecting stories and getting perspectives on various topics and issues. This is also in conjunction with the Be Here app. That is a free audio platform, digital platform for individuals to be able to collect stories, read stories, and download their stories throughout. If you don't know about the Pill Center, look them up at thepillcenter.org. They're currently under renovations and they'll be opening up probably in the next year. So we'll have more information as this series goes on about the evolution of the Pill Center. I am your host, Nate. I also do the Artist Exchange radio show, and I wanted a platform that could kind of isolate some really important topics and issues throughout Baltimore City and beyond with various individuals, community leaders, activists, artists, entrepreneurs in general, and do kind of a spotlight on specific issues. Today, our issue is homeschooling because we're in the midst of a crisis, a pandemic. I wanted to get the perspective of many parents and educators as it pertains to now this new generation, this new, well, not new generation, this new norm in educating students and kind of pinpointing the pros in actually homeschooling your children. I know a lot of parents have been wanting to do this for a number of years. And this opportunity kind of forced our hand and forced both educators and parents to make that decision without it actually being a decision. So I have a few individuals that are all parents that have all homeschooled prior to doing this and have a great perspective on the pros of a homeschooled education. I'm an educator myself, so I'm seeing the pros and cons of it in terms of the educational system now moving to a temporary homeschooling platform. And these individuals will shed some light on possibly what the educational system, the public school system, the private school system could do to help the masses get more acclimated into a homeschool position. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in my first guest, Miss Shawna Devine. She is a parent, an educator, an artist, and a homeschooler. So I'm going to bring her in now.
Peace.
How you doing,
Random
Miss
and rising beautiful
Shawna
people. How are
Devine?
you?
How you doing
Hello,
today?
Nate. I'm awesome. Yeah, I wanted to tell you a little bit about part of my homeschool network. I also work with other homeschool educators and community educators. For the past year or so, we've been working collectively together in what we call the umbrella of the Free Up Village of
Mhm.
raising free Black children. We're educating our children in a way that they are comfortable. We do not adhere to the standard 8 to 3:30 p.m. schedule, and we have it set where we give individualized attention. There is no exclusion, as it sometimes occurs in the standard public charter private school setting with the there's the dinging of the bells to tell you when to move, when to go. We have
Mhm.
structure. We have structure. So we're not going to negate that. We have structure. However, the structure isn't so strenuous or so rigid that the children won't be able to engage at their level of understanding and at their level of comfortability. I've been a
Mhm.
registered homeschooler for about, let's see, 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, right. So yeah, about 3 or 4 years roughly. And I'm blessed to be able to be a part of that network. I work with sister Mia, who will be here soon, of
Mhm.
Invisible Majority. I work with Mama Olu Butterfly of AI World School. And the name
Mhm.
of my schooling learning venture is DALA, which is Divine Ancestry Learning Academy.
Right.
My scholars that I have left in my homeschool, well, they're all still my scholars. But the two children who I have in grade school are my 11-year-old child with certain diagnosis, and also my 13-year-old child with certain diagnosis. And that's basically the reason why I decided to withdraw my children from the standard school setting and homeschool them. Ironically, it was faculty and staff at the school who suggested and advised, you need to get your children out of here. Yeah, because I have one child on the autism spectrum, in particular, who he just wasn't adapting and adjusting to that setting. He was always on his own or isolated. And I would hear things about, when I asked about his day, I'm asking about his academic performance, not about certain things associated with or characteristics associated with his diagnosis. Not if he's swinging his feet under the chair with the, he had an accommodation, which was a band that he had under his chair, so that he would not be a distraction to anybody else, and he would be able to STEM. STEMming is what autistic or neurodivergent individuals do to release stress or regulate their environment around them when they're experiencing sensory overload. So right now I'm sitting on the floor on cushions. And when I teach my children, I don't require them to sit at the desk, stay in your seat, be still, shut up, ABC 1, 2, 3, do this, do that. I don't dictate to them. I gauge their energy, and I kind of use that as a guide for how much information they might be able to receive at that time. I don't force things. I let it evolve organically. If the child feels comfortable lying on their belly with propped up on the beanbag and they want to do their work that way, that's fine. If the child would feel comfortable, sprawled across the couch, as long as they're comfortable and as long as they're receiving the information and doing the work that's required of them, and if they're comprehending and they're making progress, there's no comparison of what level you're on according to the standard, the standard options that we have, the test and the standardized testing that tell people or supposedly prove intellect or whatever. I don't subscribe to that at all. Intellect is based on a person's ability to comprehend, understand, and carry out tasks and perform basic things in life. So we do basic fundamentals, but a lot of the things I do in my house is life skills, teaching people how to care for themselves, teaching people how to cook, how to repair a garment, simple things like that. Even at the age of 5 years old, 3 years old, children can learn how to do things if you put the tools in their hands and you trust that your child is intelligent, which they are, because everybody has intelligence. Everybody is born with consciousness, awareness, and intelligence. And the way they express it may be different, but it does not mean that they don't know something because they express it a different way than you do. Like, we're looking at a number. I know this is a cliche, but you're looking at the number 6. If you're looking at it from that way, it's going to look like a 6. If I'm looking at it this way, it appears to be a 9. It doesn't make you right, and it doesn't make me wrong. You understand what I'm saying? Can you vibe with that right there? So basically, I do fundamentals of language arts, science, math, our history, because my thing is teach the children the truth. And some of the things that children get from the standard public, private, charter school setting and environment, they just don't give you those things to teach you about yourself. The education system is geared towards the European culture, and our children are like, okay, so what about me? What about my history? Where do I fit in? I was just interested in social studies and history because I'm just like, okay, we were just slaves because that's what we were taught. We don't teach that. We teach, my children have been studying the exchange or trade and barter, or what we call money today, which used to be cowrie shells. They've been studying sacred geometry, all of the sacred shapes. And I have a structure, but I kind of let them flow with it. The child will let you know when they're ready. So if you're out there and you're venturing into homeschool, please do not stress yourself out and think that you have to conform to these rigid guidelines that were set, because I know it's programmed in your head. Okay, I got to get up. It's 8 o'clock. School starts at 8. It's your house. It's your child. My child with autism sometimes suffers. He suffers really severe insomnia, and he's occupied and he's active during the wee hours of the morning. Sometimes I am. I'm a creator and an artist. So guess what I do? It's 2 a.m. in the morning. And guess what we're doing? We're studying sacred geometry. That's what we're doing. We're sketching and making a schedule. I allow him to do that because his thing, one of his fixations is lists. I'm talking about my professor, my 13-year-old baby boy Makai that I affectionately call Professor. And we do the work. Do the work when the child is alert, ready to receive it, and ready to process the information. Nobody can tell you what time to teach your baby. That's your baby. Your baby's first teacher. So that's the first thing that I want to get into parents' heads when they go through this. If they have any anxiety about this transition into our new norm, which is virtual learning, and that also leads me into wanting to talk about our virtual learning initiative, which is called a different kind of smart.
So I'm gonna stop you because I wanted you to just go into your perspective, and once we get everybody into the group, I'm gonna ask questions in terms of your individual perspective or your individual kind of contribution to this new virtual learning or temporary virtual learning system that we have. So I'm gonna not take you out, but I'm gonna add Mia at this moment, and let me bring her in just to introduce her, and then I'll get to our awesome couple thereafter. How you doing, Miss Mia? How you doing today?
Hey, Mama Mia.
How are you, Shawna?
So,
I'm good. Let me see your face.
The same way we just introduced Shawna, I want you to introduce yourself, give kind of your opinion on this homeschooling perspective versus the school perspective, schooling the original or the typical school platform, and just your opinion on them as a pro or con or what have you.
Okay. Well, I am a curator, business owner, community organizer, and educator. And educator is probably my longest title. And so since I was a teenager myself, like I worked, after school programs, I worked at camps, I worked for different like youth programs and organizations. In high school, like I was a part of groups that helped, get more funding for public schools and all of that. Like I always saw education as very important. Even though by high school, I didn't always do like super great in school. Like I started, no, really by middle school, I was just kind of over it. And I felt like doing well, the way that they wanted you to do stuff wasn't conducive to learning. And I was really just into learning. So, I didn't always get the best grades. I cut class a lot, but I did it in a way because I didn't like school. So I didn't want to have to go to summer school or night school or nothing. So I would make sure I did just enough to pass. And move along. And I kind of regretted it when I graduated and all my friends got scholarships. And I was like, trying to figure out how I was going to pay for college. But then I didn't regret it when I'm graduating college and I'm the first one to be gainfully employed, and all of my valedictorian friends and their Ivy League schools were working at restaurants. So one thing that made me think about and realize beyond just like working in these different public school systems from Philly to Baltimore to New Orleans, like I've been all over seeing how these different school systems work, is like it before I even had children, it was just like, okay, I think I believe in homeschooling. And I didn't growing up. Like any homeschooling child I met, I felt like was weird and kind of socially awkward. And, a little selfish, like, so I just wasn't into it. And I always saw my children going to public school, but working there and like, you go to the teachers' lounge and the teachers are complaining about the children, everybody, I think even if you like look like the children, generally speaking, there's still this class divide. And it's this, it's sometimes it can be an environment where the people who are working there don't actually really want to be there. And it was just kind of like a default profession because it's always hiring. You know what I mean? You didn't get into what you wanted to. And so my last full-time job where I was setting up conflict resolution programs in the schools, and I was working at a high school, and I started to have anxiety attacks because I was just like, these children are not being prepared for anything but jail and maybe the military at best. Like the environment, the way that it looks, the dynamics, how they're being ushered in the hallways, how no learning is really happening in the classroom. There's no encouragement of entrepreneurship. There's no college readiness. You're in school for 12 years and you're still not able to read. You're still not able to do basic math stuff. Critical thinking is off. And so when I had my own children, and you realize how children love learning naturally. But again, when you're in this systematic environment, you're always having these conversations. These kids don't want to learn. They don't want to learn, blah, blah, blah. Children naturally learn. Children naturally engage with their environments. But it can be frustrating to us as adults because of the way they naturally learn and engage with their environment. So like the other day, I almost threw my child out the window because, I had baking soda, we had lemon juice. And so, we were playing around with it and we got to see the first experiment, but they wanted to keep doing it. And I'm just like, I'll need my baking soda. I need my lemon juice. You're not going to keep doing this. Like you're using up all my resources. But that's how they learn. They want to cook, they want to engage, and they need that extra facilitation, and sometimes that can be exhausting. So I understand why in the school environment things are like a certain way, but they play everybody to the middle, and anybody that's too low or too high is a problem. And it doesn't help someone individually. And one big thing that I noticed in schools is like you could be like, I was always quiet, right? And you could be a young, especially if you're a girl, you can be quiet and not do anything. And as long as that's the case, don't nobody care if you can read, write, spell. Like as long as you're not getting on somebody's nerves, you're not being, and on the opposite side of that, particularly with boys, I noticed, because I did really well working with boys, especially the ones that just had like huge behavior issues. And there was so many times that I worked with boys who were so smart, and you asked them and they were just like, no, I'm not, because I get in trouble all the time. Like, no, I'm not. Because I'm like, there's one little boy I work with who now is grown, which is crazy to me. But he was just like, I had to tell him, I was like, you're the only person that wrote a perfect essay. He was in the 5th grade. I said, you had perfect syntax, like your sentences, your spelling, everything is perfect. But he was in foster care. He was absent a lot. And he got in trouble every time he was in school. And so it just was so many times where, like, when I was able to give a child individual attention and really see what their needs are, see that it didn't match their IEP, or, it didn't really, and just like this kind of personal journey of how, like, ways that I was traumatized by the schooling system, or ways that I started to become mediocre because I knew that I could just do the bare minimum. Again, especially as like a Black person from an urban environment, it's like, you're not expecting much from me anyway. So as long, instead of playing to my own personal, I know I can do much more, but it's like, all right, if you expecting me to be down here, then if I do right here, then I'm cool, like I don't have to try extra hard because my cool is whatever. So yeah, so it's like, that's what made me start to think about wanting to do it that way. And I started to meet other families, as Shawna said, with, Olu and Free Up, and, seeing how Shawna does things in a couple other families and other schooling environments. One thing I think when you think from a homeschooling and home learning perspective is that you start early, and you don't expect somebody else to educate your child. You don't expect the system to educate your child. You start to do you start to just do little things and you start to be very intentional. My children are still very young, and I decided this year to go ahead and put them in school, just so they could get like a taste and understand, get at least a little bit of structure. But I was concerned because, my children can be very wild. So I didn't know, and they don't always like, being
non-conformist.
Yeah, they're very, So I wasn't sure how they were going to do, but both of them actually excelled. And I think one of the reasons why they excelled is because, one, they have so much space to be themselves, but also because learning wasn't this thing that was like forced on them. I'm more on the unschooling spectrum, where we're just going to libraries, we're going to museums, we're going to the park, we're going to the farm, and we're learning stuff as we go. And we dig in when we're in more so collective. So I was hosting some collective things, and again, going to Free Up, and then also a Readers Cross Freedom School. And that's where they would really dig into a topic, because that's where they thrive in like community learning. And I'm seeing now that they've been in school and back home, it's really been a struggle, because they are starting to differentiate. It's not just that like all of this is fun and it's so exciting to learn my ABCs. Now it's like, oh, it's school time, you know what I mean? Or like, oh, now we got to do this. And so, I'm thinking really hard about whether or not they are going to return to school next year. I needed a little break. I needed some support in their learning, especially just to establish the basics. But I don't want them to be, again, traumatized from learning early. Normally we see it around 4th grade, where children don't want to do school anymore. And I really feel like, again, seeing children grow from infancy now, I really feel like it's because we literally beat it out of them. Like, we literally beat the learning. And I still work in school sometimes. So I go in, and like I was teaching, I was doing this activity with children in the schools, and just seeing how, like, we're so quick to say yes and no to certain things that don't have a yes or no to. It's like, well, let's talk about it some more. Let's explore that some more. What are your questions? Or like, shut them down when they are truly engaged, but they just might be a little excited about this engagement, And so it should be it shouldn't be a surprise to us by middle school when you're trying to get them and engage in any activity at this point. It could be fun, and they're all like, all dull.
And they can be so nonchalant about certain things. But I mean, allowing self-expression in children is important, because we want them to be critical thinkers. We want them to explore their own thoughts, and we want them to express how they actually really feel. So it sort of negates that whole process when we have the yes and no thing, the black and white thing, and we make them, move at the ding of a bell, which is what I consider what it is, the school to prison pipeline. The reason why, you don't want your children in that environment for long term, because it conditions them, it programs them to know to step and fetch, master ring the bell. I'm going to say it just like that, with no cut cards. That is what it is. The structure of the school system nowadays is exactly like the structure of men in jail. One of my scholars has had a horrible experience with the school to prison pipeline. That's another show. But yeah, I prefer homeschooling, having children who are neurodivergent, being an adult who's neurodivergent. You guys know that if you for the people who might be unfamiliar, Afro Aspies Rock is my initiative under which I talk about my neurodivergency and transparency and self-disclosure, and where I display some of the things that we do, including the homeschooling venture that we're engaged in. And I'm honored to have worked with you, Mia, with my children. They call you Mama Mia. We have meshed and become a village, a family. And I needed that support, because I was out there winging it myself. And my children didn't start out doing the homeschool thing young. They went to standard charter school, and they had the standard, 8 to 3 schedule, even with aftercare. One of my children even had individualized attention in reading the language, in language arts. But after unsuccessfully going that route with the school system. Now here we are. We're homeschooling, and we're learning our way. When we come together, me and I have cooked with the children. Taught they, as much as we are teaching them, they're teaching us. Am I right, Mama Mia? I mean, we're learning a lot about ourselves and our level of tolerance, being patient, being kind, and loving, because you don't want to do what's already being done in the standard setting, and that's to cause a child to shut down, and not want to engage.
So
You don't want
I'm gonna take this opportunity. Sorry, Shawna. I'm gonna take this opportunity to bring in our last two guests. And I asked to just let them express who they are, so we can then get to the conversation, and then everybody will get an opportunity. I'm gonna throw out a couple topics and trigger words, and we'll be all able to kind of communicate. But I just wanted everybody to be introduced and everybody to kind of get their perspective and their viewpoint. So finally, we're going to bring in now our couple, our homeschooling couple. How y'all doing today?
Hello, peace and blessings. How are y'all? Welcome, family.
Can you all give us your names, because your title doesn't give your name, so everybody know who you are?
So my name's Corrine Griffith.
And I'm Malon Butler.
How you doing today? Can you kind of give me your perspective on homeschooling and being a parent versus homeschooling versus traditional learning, quote unquote traditional learning?
Absolutely. So I was listening to you guys earlier, and I loved what I was hearing. This is truly the case and the issue for a lot of brown and Black children that are in the school. They're being forced to conform to a system that really isn't natural to them. And I feel like we addressed a lot of serious topics, the school to prison pipeline being one. They're being conformed and trained to lead them right into the jail cells. Right. And all of the funding is going there as well. And so we need to focus on reaching our children as individuals. And so I love what you were saying, Sister Mia. That was so important when you look at a child as an individual and not as a collective. Every child has different learning styles. They learn in different ways. The way they express themselves are differently. And what's going on in their background could really change and influence the way they present themselves in the school setting. So not everyone is going to be able to sit in a classroom, sit still, and just be quiet. And I know what you mean, being a brown sister and just sitting there being quiet. They didn't care what you did as long as you weren't drawing attention to yourself. And so it's really important to recognize that there is more of a tolerance. They are barely tolerating the children in the school system, and teachers are exhausted. I know I've been working as an educator, an informal educator, for most of my life. Used to teach piano back in high school, and then all the way up to now, where my background is in environmental science. I work as an environmental educator. So I bring children outdoors. Our lessons are in the soil. It literally is a lesson of pollinators. We go to the gardens and we look at a bee. It's not about forcing them to see symbols and identify and trigger them into a way that they are very reactory. And I think it's important that we recognize that a lot of what they're doing is brainwashing them. Children are very creative. They are excited to learn. I love what you were saying about how eager your experiences with children are, because they really are very curious. And it's because everything is so new. Everything is exciting to them. So just being able to support that. Ever since we've been on this lockdown, we've been trying to create a sort of system through our program, Different Kind of Smart, because there's all kinds of ways to be smart, and just show aids for parents and help teachers who are also struggling during this time. A lot of parents are now being forced to be educators, and I know they're being stressed by this because, a lot of parents don't know what it takes to teach a child sometimes, and actually have the time for themselves to sit down and be with themselves, let alone give each child individual attention. So it is very time consuming. You have to be patient with children. You have to be able to listen and let them express themselves. I think another issue is that a lot of times some adults who are burnt out in a way, don't have the patience for what it really takes to listen to a child and express what they have to say. And I love your example that you gave, Sister Mia, about the young gentleman who wrote that essay perfect, right? I can think of a few people who excel in certain categories that they would never look to explore because it's not immediately available to them or prioritized as something valuable in the first place. So it's really hard to combat a society that's pressing upon in every direction that the child is in, really starting from infancy. So, you know, once they do hit that 4th grade, 5th grade spectrum, I can think of a little boy who told me reading's not for me. Sounding out this isn't my thing. It's just, and I know it's because he feels pressured and he doesn't have the patience or feel like others have patience with him. And so I think that it's really important that we look at each child as an individual and look at their individual needs. So,
so I'm listening, and the reason we're doing it in this format is because I wanted to really listen to what you all have to say. So I'm gonna let the gentleman give his perspective, if he can get on camera just a little bit, and then we're gonna go right into some bullet points that I have for you all to kind of give your perspective and understanding on it.
Absolutely. And so I appreciate everything that y'all have said. I actually come from a homeschool background. I've gotten a chance to be in both. I was in public school in Indiana. I think running neck and neck with Georgia at the time for one of the worst school systems in the nation. So it's what got me into homeschooling. I was homeschooled from my 5th grade all the way to my senior year of high school. And so being a part of that, it really let me isolate and focus on different elements of studying that I remember I couldn't get from the school system. And so a lot of what I've heard, I think, is true and kind of motivated me to do what I'm doing right now with my partner, Corrine. You see different kind of smart in the Indigenous Business Association moving in tandem so that we can combat some of the pressures that come in. So I know we made mention to the idea that it comes down to funding, right? We socialize children in groups. That's in every psychological textbook, but it's also in the funding textbooks because those placement tests are what keep those schools generated. And if you don't do well, your insurance, your taxes, everything that you had that was a funding source that made you qualified to receive your type of funding source at all is now risked when those youth don't perform. So now they're objects. They're no longer beings. It's not about their learning style. It's about a task. It's about an objective. And so long as you can memorize and set this to memory, even if it takes you all semester and we don't work on anything else, you're going to learn what I need to know for the school to sustain. And so that's damaging. But I think that's for us when we know we're giving our youth to our oppressors to educate. That's something that we need to take personally and realize, you know what? We have educators of our own right. We have doctorates of our own right. We have lessons of our own right. Why can't we put this into a rites of passage and teach it through a way that responds to the family unit? Because like you guys were saying on the call, right now, we're forcing parents to become teachers that they never, through lessons they never understood, never liked, went through the same struggles their age. It puts a lot of pressure in the house. So now you see a negative cycle during a phase where we're social distancing. So all of that tension is just right on top of you. Where you gonna go? Your bedroom, right? And so these kind of pressures that come in, you need to have something that can break that monotony a little bit and offer them resources. And so that avoids the risk of me. I love what you said earlier too. We damage our children easily when we tell them the small things that they believe in aren't true.
Yes.
Right. And so you're in the house now, all of these cultural background issues that we've had 400 years of experience with are coming out at once. And so it's for our leaders, our mentors, our educators to step up now and begin. These youth here are smart. We can reach them through these technological platforms, just like different kind of smart is doing and so many others on this call. But we need to take up that responsibility to reach them on their personal level and understand that's how we mend the gap. If we've gone through any kind of issues, it needs to stop with the generations under us. That's my spill.
So trust and believe, and I had to go into this understanding that I'm on the other side of what you all are talking about, like a teacher in the classroom. and not trying to defend the the teacher. And I, being someone who was raised in the Catholic school system, and now being being a teacher in the public school system, I understand how many parents feel. I just wish that most of those parents would get together, as many of you are, and attack, in the harshest way I can explain it, attack the school board. Baltimore City, like some other urban cities, we have a CEO in charge of our school system, who is educated. I don't want to take away from her education or her background or even her role as a mother, but we have a CEO as a leader, as the leader in our educational system. And I wanted to just put a couple of those tidbits out there. So what I have seen as an educator throughout the years is parents are really, really particular about their children's education. But you all represent a very small population of people who actually go out there and do something about it. We put a lot of emphasis on what the school should be learning. And the problem that I see from my perspective, and some of you who have been in teacher roles probably understand it too, I can give your child the moon, the stars, the universe. But if they don't see that at home, it does nothing for them. It has no effect on them. It won't stick to who they are in terms of growing. And often they don't really connect the lessons that they got as children until they are adults and they're forced to kind of go that route. So Mia mentioned children being really tired. And I'm noticing earlier on than even fourth grade now. You
Right.
got pre-K students, and I didn't realize the shift because I'm used to middle school and high school, but I didn't realize now preschoolers and kindergartners are in school all day long. I don't know when that happened. And I was trying to do the research in terms of specifically in Baltimore City school system when that happened. Because I remember going to school half a day. And but children being too tired and exhausted to even learn because of the routine of getting up early, staying till 3, and then going from class to class and having minimal rest periods. So I wanted you all to kind of give me your perspective on how do you, as homeschoolers, kind of keep your children from being exhausted from the learning that is required, because the state still requires that they get a certain amount of time, if I'm not mistaken. But how do we keep our children from being exhausted from learning? How do you all kind of combat that?
I want to jump in. I've always had a pretty busy schedule, you know, especially coming from college. Like college, I had 2 jobs and I was going to school full time. So as soon as I left college, I'm working a full-time job, a part-time job, and a volunteer thing. One thing I just, and people, always, and now, of course, as a mother, and like people see me do business stuff and all of that, and my life is way more slowed down than 10 years ago, but people still ask, like, how can you do that? And the reality is, when you're passionate about something and when you like what you're doing and when you enjoy what you're doing, and it goes along with who you are as a person, it's just a part of your day. It doesn't feel like it's something extra. So what you're exhausted by that force. Like 6 hours. That's one thing I even realized putting my kids in school, because I'm like, oh, I need a break. And then it's like, you realize how little 6 hours really is. So at the time I did all of this to get them to school and drop them off. And then, but my son was in a part day program, and I still have my youngest daughter all day. But it was like, after just picking up and dropping off, it's like, all right, now we still have this full day that we still have all this stuff to do. And so all of that is to say, that's the beauty and the benefit of like creating just your own system and your own home learning thing, and you're able to recognize, like, even when I'm most overwhelmed or most stressed, I'm extremely grateful for being able to say, all right, I'm overwhelmed today, I'm going to take a nap, versus I got to force myself to go somewhere and then I'm like twiddling my thumbs the whole time, or not really focused, or not really doing what I'm supposed to do because I don't want to be there anyway. So you have the opportunity to pause and reset when you need to. You have the opportunity to say, okay, we're just going to have an outdoor day today, or we're just going to have a day watching movies, you know, and it doesn't take away from the overall goals. Because another thing, like when you realize that you're your child's first teacher, whether your child is in traditional school or not, you recognize that you're preparing them for adulthood. You know, you're not just trying to get them to graduate. As they said, you're not just trying to pass the tests, but you are trying to prepare them to be full, whole human beings that are productive citizens, that are happy, healthy, and sustaining themselves by the end of all of this, you know. And a day off doesn't keep that from happening. A day off, you understand that they're constantly learning, so you're more intentional about what you have in the environment. So again, I might be just doing movies all day, but we're making sure we're watching certain types of movies if that's the case. We might just be going outside, but we're making sure when they ask me a question about this flower, I'm not like, I don't know, be quiet and let's keep it moving. It's like, all right, well, let me find out. And then like maybe let's go ahead and pick up all these dandelions. Then I just learned they good for you, and then we can come back home and make lemonade with them, you know.
Exactly.
You know,
teach you.
Comes a thing.
I love that. You make everything a learning experience. I think that's exactly what it means when you recognize a school at home. It's everything is new to the child. So they always are full of questions. And so it really is just taking the time to explain to them and let them have their questions and be curious, and you can make everything a learning situation. I know when I take time and work with the children who don't like to read, there are words everywhere. We don't have to sit down and read a book for me to engage you with reading. And so it's finding these unique avenues that I think is really important, because you can make learning fun and then it's not so exhausting. And having a frequency of break, like actually not sitting down and writing things out, because there is power putting pencil to paper, I feel, but also recognizing that you can learn by playing with blocks and putting Legos together and actually taking textile materials and using sensory objects. I think that's really important too, because a lot of children learn in different ways. And so utilizing these different ways, most people don't use words.
You gotta sneak them in there, baby. You know, that's exactly how I put it. It's like a food reference to me. I didn't like all the vegetables I ate growing up until sometimes it was blended and moved and put into different foods that I was forced to try. Like that, I like this combination. And now I'm not thinking about this broccoli. I'm thinking about this pasta dish as a whole. I'm getting my nutrition at the same time, though. And so I think we can take their attention and kind of run with that.
Put that barbecue sauce on the cauliflower, right?
I'm glad you're talking about food, because this is crazy. A lot of my learning takes place in the kitchen. You've been to my home, Milan, and a lot of my learning takes place in the kitchen. Like with this COVID-19 thing going on, this is a teachable moment. So everybody's talking about elderberry and ashwagandha and Irish sea moss. So I went out and bought all of that stuff. And recently I've had my children go on and, you know, they chose the herbs and they labeled them and were able to identify them. Like everything around you can be a teachable moment. Even a simple question, like the question why about anything can open up so many avenues of conversations and so much dialogue and with your child to just see what they have in their head. Sometimes children's opinions are funny. And you they actually teach you something though. You're like, wait, I didn't think about that. Like I said, our children teach us.
Absolutely.
And making it engaging, and like what Mama Mia said about the dandelions and going out and explore. We go out and forage right in our own community and neighborhood. Simple things like acorns. That, you know, that could spawn or, you know, catalyze a lesson about, you know, how the whole process from the seed to the tree to the leaf to the, you know, its death. It's a life cycle. You just have to be creative and make it fun. As a creator myself, you know, as an artist, an entrepreneur, my children have created things and I didn't even know my baby boy Bakari crafts and sculpts his own sculptures, and he's taken these items and spontaneously sold them and set them up at a table at an event I was at. And did I say, who told you to do that? No. I went over there and I wrote a sound for him and I helped him because he was showing this initiative and, his being creative and showing entrepreneurship skills that the school doesn't teach. But guess where he learned it at? He learned it within our homeschooling collective. Mama Mia taught the entrepreneur classes. You remember that? And this is before we even took the children to engage and have their own entrepreneurial experience at Artscape last year. So it's just a matter of, learn your child's language, their love language. Does your child need to if your child needs to take breaks and is fidgety, like in our collective, when we come together in the school system, they have what's called the SST, student support. If the child is disruptive or unable to manage themselves for whatever reason, the problem that I have with the school system is that they would send the children out and exclude the child, isolate the child. I was that child. As a neurodivergent adult, I was ADHD. I got bored in school. I didn't want to listen. I didn't want to be still. If I was finished my work, I would do something goofy like throw spitballs or make fart noises. Like I'm just being, that's what I did. I was a child. I'm still so connected with my inner child that I understand the challenges that my neurodivergent children do have. I understand them challenges because I have them. Paying attention, like right now, I'm sitting here fidgeting and rocking back and forth. You got to understand, let these babies move around. Don't stick them in this box. Allow them to be free in school. Have some structure. Relax. The child is learning. The knowledge is being absorbed. Children are not stupid. I think that some of us are behaving in a manner that might be described that way because we don't see what's right in front of our face. The child will tell you what they need, basically. Observe their behavior and their responses. They'll tell you what they need.
So you all are kind of gearing this right in order of what some of the things that I wanted to talk about. That idea that if a child is being quote unquote disruptive or having trouble learning, for me, I personally, those support staff people have been put into place because there are other children in the classroom. And I'm not, don't give me don't think that I'm disputing anything that you're saying, but I'm gonna represent the other side of the conversation for you all so we can be as balanced as we can be. What do you suggest in terms of keeping the child in the classroom? I understand because sometimes when those support staff bring the child back to the class, they were calm because they were separated. But when they come back, it's status quo. They're back to whatever behavioral issue that they were having or attention issue that they were having. In terms of, what advice can you give to both parents and to teachers who may not be able to adjust in this right now or moving forward in the homeschooling group because they got to work or they got other children or whatever the issue may be? How do we incorporate more compassion for those students, and what role do parents play in helping the school with that? Because if you got a class full of 35 students and you got 2 or 3 that's being disruptive, or you got and there are levels to disruption. Is it a behavioral issue? Is it an attention issue? Is it trauma? What's happening where that child can't focus in that moment? Because sometimes, like you said, there's power in the paper and the pencil. Not every moment of that class period can be doing, whatever you feel you should be doing. Sometimes you got to get the lesson. But what do you all suggest, and what do you think the relationship between parents, staff, and teachers can be to help kind of combat those issues that teachers have in the classroom on a daily basis? I'm telling you, it's a daily problem, and it's normally a handful of students. But whatever's going on at home or with them mentally, something has to change or something has to give. But what role does the parent play in kind of helping support that staff? Because I see many parents that are just as frustrated as the teachers are.
Well,
So-
who's jumping in? What?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say
Go
that
ahead, Shawna.
who's going first?
Can you go first, and then we can hear from Shawna?
Yeah, you go first, Corrine.
Okay. The parents, it really all starts at home. And I think what is important is that there is a parent and teacher relationship that needs to be established, or a parent and educator conversation. You need to know your child, and you need to know your child inside and out. Sometimes as a mother, you know your child better than your child knows themselves. So I also think it's important that you be able, the parent, have what it takes. Sometimes parents are also going through a lot. And so it is about having a community. It really isn't just one individual. I feel like when I'm working with certain families, a lot of them feel alone in certain situations and scenarios. They don't feel like they have any support. It's like me against the teacher or me against the school kind of mentality.
Right.
So it's really about finding a sense of support and community. And so that's what working with a homeschooling initiative even looks like, and utilizing the platform. I've been working with Shawna for a long time as well. And I know that, Shawna, you have some of the most creative ways of engaging with your children, and I love it. And that is what it takes as a parent, is knowing yourself, knowing that you are also a human as a parent, and not trying to be perfection. And I think that to a child shows that you are also a human, right? And it's okay, because we all make mistakes and we're all learning together. Sometimes I feel like parents feel the pressure of being responsible and having the correct answer. Like, sometimes it's okay to say, like, we're going to have to learn this together. We're going to have to figure this out together. And, like, you're not alone in how you feel, and being stressed because your teacher is yelling at you isn't a strange way to feel. And so I feel like a lot of children feel alone. Sometimes they don't feel like their parent is on their side either. So I also feel like it's really important that the parent have their own level of engagement. We have parent lessons that can support that. There has to be a way of community and communally coming together as a network to support each other.
I just want to come in real quick, Shawna. I know I'm going to you. I do feel about the classroom and children the same way I do about Blacks when they talk about crabs in a bucket, right? That is not the natural habitat of the crab. We're measuring it inside of a science of something that's not even supposed to be in. And talk about how that crab operates in the ocean, then we can discuss some cultural issues if we find them. But when we're talking about crabs in a state of oppression, they're going to respond to that differently, anxiety-wise and so forth. And so coming down to it here as a parent, I think it's important that you take that empowerment step to say, look, I'm making the decisions about your education. It might not be just homeschool, but if I am putting you into an educational system, I'm putting you into something that I know and I have a relationship with that's active. I know what your lesson plan is. I know who your teachers are. I know what you bring your stuff home. We talk about it, right? But I'm actively engaging in your learning and your development. You know how many times, even when I was in the school system, when I came home, how I had little subtle additional homework because parents or grandparents or parentals didn't feel like I knew lessons according to their standards, right? So they just let you know how active. They let me know I couldn't sleep because the last thing I wanted to do was come home and repeat my work. So now when I'm in the school system, I'm going to apply myself. You know what I'm saying? All right, go ahead, Shawna.
So before you go, Shawna, I only want to dig a little bit deeper into that idea of crabs in a barrel being a natural state. And I'm glad that Shawna did invite you on, because often I only hear from dads when the mom is fed up, or as the person who handles the behavior of the child. So hearing from a dad and having that type of perspective is refreshing to me, because I hate talking to the dad, because that normally means there's no other resources being allocated. Can you speak to, just dig a little bit deep into that crab in the barrel mentality? Because I think I never saw it that way, and I never thought of it that way. Like, that's not a natural state of mind for us.
Right. No, I appreciate that. And I'm gonna be honest with you. A lot of it as a Black man is indoctrination through a system. There's certain fears and psychological ways I approach life that I know are a result of the system that I've been through. And so you look at for us, I feel like young and in particular, we're very quick to reach that age and that thought process where nobody really cares about us, right? Right when we start delving into our more derelict, we out in the street, we out doing what we really need to do or feel we need to do to make ends meet. It's a result of two things. I'm not learning anything from the education system that lets me sustain my lifestyle. Me learning Pythagorean's theory does not teach me how to pay bills for my mama to keep them lights on, right? So if I'm in this system and I'm not learning what I feel, I don't care about your standard. If I'm not learning what I feel I need to sustain my life, I'm going to take steps. And my mind and that society shows me as a man that I feel that I'm going to take. Nobody, that's not up to anybody else. It's my decision. And right around that age, combined with that fact that you don't believe a lot of people are really caring about you. I don't mean to slight mothers, but it almost doesn't reach the same with your mom, right? Mom, you're supposed to be there. I know you love me. I come and get a hot mood, a meal, plate, hugs and kisses, right? But like societally speaking, I feel like there is no interest in Black male life. Not from offices, not from institutions. Everywhere we try, we can't get funding. We've been redlined. We've all these things that, and we have been defined based on our ability to provide, right? So that's a big portion of who I am and a big portion of society that is specifically against me before I even get started. I was having these conversations about young Black men when I'm 3, 5 years old. I'm seeing it on little micro levels. I remember being 3, 4 going out, just a simple Halloween trip, and I hear people in the back, there's no such thing as Black vampires, right? So you see that it's not just me. Everybody has a certain perception of what I'm supposed to become before I even know what I want to do. And so I'm kind of fighting all of that. I think there's a lot of room for confusion, and adult males need to step into mentoring positions and speak with this kind of knowledge. I can speak to Black men about all these kind of things. Absentee parentism, military brats. There's so many different generational learning from being raised from grandparents, homeschool, public school. I use my personal life as a way to reach and connect with those who I feel I can connect with. And I think more Black men need to do that. And we need to learn how to work with the sisters and receive that nutrition from them so that we could do it on a more divine level and not just raise them according to how to survive in the same structure that we're fighting. That's something we can't do ourselves. That's a family unit thing. We need to elevate that spiritual level and tone of the culture.
That has stress.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Okay, well, refresh me what the original question was, because we went back to the crab and the barrel. What was the original question?
So I wanted you to, so for you, I would want you to answer, what can we do to kind of, so the point of this conversation from my perspective is to help new homeschooling parents in this new norm that we're in right now, and the school system to adapt some of the principles that homeschoolers have been using without ostracizing a teacher or a system that has just been in place and been unmonitored by parents. So my question for you is, what are some of those things that we can do to support children more when they're having those outbursts or disruptions or mental breakdowns or traumatic PTSDs? What can we do as educators from your perspective as a homeschooler to combat that? Because we can't just let a child go off because the other 30-something people in the classroom are then affected by that one child.
Right. You have, in the classroom setting, you have about 35, 40 children. And you have a teacher, a certified teacher. It's supposed to be a certified teacher. And you have a paraprofessional. And you got a few parents like me volunteering. My firstborn child is 26 years old. My child was 3 years old when I sent him to Head Start. Everybody knows I'm from Baltimore, period. I'm official Baltimore girl. I went and enrolled this child in this school because I was thinking I was doing the best thing for him. When my child went to school, he was already writing and reading. He already knew all of his basic fundamentals: name, address, phone number, city, state, country, continent. He knew those things already. I mean, the child is very sharp, and I just let him go. So when I got into the school setting, I made sure that even though it was Head Start, to me it was school, and that's somebody else responsible for caring for my child. I knew that my child had something going on. I knew that he had some kind of he was hyper, he was loud. He was the one that bounced all around. And so when I started noticing, I felt funny, and I had a little angst and little about somebody else disciplining my child. So I stayed in the classroom because I wasn't working at the time, full time or anything. And I stayed in the classroom during the day, and I assisted the teacher. I made sure that everything was going well with him. I volunteered with the other students, and eventually, through consistently volunteering and building a relationship with my child's teachers at the time, I was able to secure my own art class after school for the city's first initiative, after school initiative called the Child First program. That was through St. Veronica's Head Start and Baltimoreans United in Leadership Development. Now, I made it my business to always know what my child was doing in the classroom, always know what the teachers were. I already knew he had issues, so I wanted to be there, and I was really hovery, because I wanted to know everything that was going on, all of the interactions. If he was disrupted, let me know. I will take him out of the classroom. I will process with him. I know that all parents are not going to be able to do that, but I think that improvement with the SST should be where instead of taking a child out and reprimanding them for behavior, process and ask them, what is going on? Are you okay? How are you feeling? Do you need some water? Offer the child some water. Sometimes children get headaches just like adults. And what I found out about one of my children is he was having consistent headaches. He was irritable and cranky because the child had a daggone headache. When grown-ups get headaches, aren't we irritable? Aren't we cranky? We don't want to be bothered. Somebody making noise and plucking your ear in line, or pulling at a girl's pigtail playfully behind her in line, or at the lunchroom or cafeteria, the child gets irritated. And a lot of times I think that they need to just pay more attention to these students sometimes, because I've observed situations escalate when another child, being compliant, they raise their hand, they're being compliant and conforming. And because the teacher is so busy, sometimes an incident occurs. And the only child that they hear or see, or the child that gets put out or sent to student support or had some disciplinary measure taken, is the child who was the loud one. Like me, and say, if you're quiet, if you sit down and shut up, you're okay. That's why a lot of our children are being diagnosed with all these, conditions, ADHD, and I have diagnoses in my family. Like I said, that's what Afro-Aspis Rock is for. If you go to Afro-Aspis Rock, you'll see what I'm talking about. But we are neurodivergent. I'm on the autism spectrum. I have 2 other children who are on the autism spectrum. So I'm a neurodivergent adult raising neurodivergent children. And I see things from a perspective that other people can't see. I'm not saying that all teachers antagonize children, but sometimes I see that as well. Like if a child had displayed a certain behavior the day before, they come into the classroom setting on a fresh new day, and they are greeted with, we're not going to have none of that today. Come on now, you know what I'm talking about. I know you've seen it. Absolutely. I've experienced it, and I've had to intervene. And it's not even this is how I've got to know. I know a lot of students in school that I didn't previously engage with, because I was rescuing them from what I thought was an unfair situation. I needed to be their advocate. I felt like that was me. I saw all of that. I'm sorry, sweetheart. How are you feeling? Because they don't really want you to engage with other people's children, because things that have occurred. You're not supposed to engage to a certain extent if you're not. I'm sorry, what did you say, Corrine?
Well, I was just going to say right on that, not only do they it's like they get lost. They prefer that they stay quiet, and they only focus on the ones that are gaining a lot of attention. And it's in a negative way. They don't really look at the child. They're objects at this point. And I often do see teachers, and I'm an educator, so I know how stressful it is as a teacher, but they, being humans themselves, have to recognize how they impress upon the children. Sometimes I feel like being so burned out, they forget the responsibilities of having to play that role model.
Teachers are human. I mean, teachers are human beings. With humans have flaws. Humans have levels of tolerance. But I think the parents, like me being a parent, what I did was I made sure that every single school, my firstborn son went to several different schools. We had bad experiences with teachers and good experiences. I mean, so I'm not just saying like I'm just so anti-school, anti-teacher, because if it works for you, it works. My thing was that as a parent, how we can solve this problem is to make sure that you are actively engaged in your child's school career. Talk to the teachers. The teachers at my child's school had access to me via email, cell phone, even social media. Don't tell me when it becomes a problem with or the behavior becomes a crisis. Let me know immediately. We can discuss it together. We can talk to the child together, and we can find out what the problem is. If they already know that I have children with diagnosed with special needs, we can talk about and formulate a plan to help my child be more comfortable and at ease, and to help relieve your burden, teacher. Let my child know, yes, you have to you have to respect Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so, because you're here to get what you need. And you make your child aware that I'm not sure what some other parents do, but I've never tried to antagonize the teacher and make the teacher my enemy. My thing was to always try to cooperate, because we're the team. We're a team, and I build a team around my child's education. I call the meetings. Haven't had IEPs of children with those things, and even having a child with a need for one-on-one assistance, and a child who even had to attend level 5 because the accommodations just weren't there in the standard school setting. I just think that you have to work with the teacher, develop the relationship with your child's educator if you're going to keep your child in standard. And I'm not saying that it's going to work out perfectly and you're always going to agree, but it helps if you're involved. Am I right?
So that's a very good statement, and I'm a bullet point that, because that goes into something that I want to talk about also. Mia, I'm gonna go to you. How is it possible for us to have both? I hear a lot, and I've experienced a lot of students who have been homeschooled up into probably like the 4th or 5th grade, and then their parents, for whatever reason, decided to incorporate them into the standard way of learning, the standard school system, or financial problems, or whatever that is. But how can we structure schools so that parents do have that ability to homeschool for the foundation years, and then maybe incorporate them into learning? How do you think, is that possible, or is it effective, or what are your opinions on being able to balance, maybe trying both or exploring both?
I think it even goes with your last question and some of the stuff that came out. Like, there just has to be a stronger relationship between communities and the schools. That's really the only way that's going to work. And the reality is, like, all of us, again, are coming mostly from like an urban background, but of course, more Black parents are homeschooling, but it's not exclusive to us, and there's reasons why white families homeschool. But anyway, you have, like, in suburban places or like smaller communities where nothing happened. The parents get to dictate what goes on in the school. They get to help dictate what the funding is, all of that type of stuff. And so we get on Black communities a lot saying, like, parents are involved, but we haven't involved them. In a lot of school settings, I noticed that we push them away. So even with my son's school, he was just in a 3-year-old program, so it was only 2 hours, and it's all play and all that type of stuff. But like, literally the first day they asked, over the intercom, they asked all the parents to leave. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
I had that problem too. I experienced that too.
And I understand why they said that. I understand why they say that, because as an educator, you want to set a completely different tone in your classroom so that whatever does go on home doesn't affect them in the classroom. So I get it. At the same time, this is a potentially traumatizing thing for a young child to be in the midst of strangers and now being expected to listen to people he don't even know like that. Right. And then we wonder why some of them potentially have some sort of like behavior issue.
Separation anxiety.
My daughter's school is completely different in that most of the staff are parents and their children go to the school. And I've seen even the difference of how they've handled this remote learning because they understand the difficulty of it. So like they've given us tools and resources, but it's not a forced thing. Some schools are telling their kids to have their uniform on in front of their computer all day. And that's just ridiculous, you know? So
absolutely ridiculous. That is dictatorship. That is a school mechanism
into the home environment. Like you give tools. But anyway, I think with everything that's going on now, I think it's a really good opportunity for stuff to go smaller. You know what I mean? Like, there's been like when I was first into education activism, there was this huge push of making sure that classrooms got smaller. Then classrooms got smaller and we got it down to 12, 15 students a class. Then they're like, oh, it's not enough kids in these schools. We got to close down the schools. Now in the classrooms are, again, 25 students plus. My daughter is in kindergarten. There should not be 27 5-year-olds in a class. Anybody know anything about 5-year-olds should not have 27 in a class. So I get, you know, everybody knows I have a lot of criticism about the school system, teachers, all that, but it's not, I'm not criticizing the individuals. I'm not criticizing the individual teachers. I'm criticizing the fact that the best teachers feel stressed and want to leave. I'm criticizing the fact that one adult is expected to manage 27 5-year-olds. Like that just doesn't work. But the way that my daughter's schools handle it is an open door policy. I don't have to schedule my time there. I can show up at her school anytime I want. I can sit in the classroom anytime I want. Honestly, I don't because again, that's my break. Right. And you know, we have all this extra. My children want to stay up in the middle of the night. So like we have all this extra time during the day to do all this extra stuff. But not everywhere is like that. And again, to answer the last question and answer this one, there has to be a high level of respect on both ends for it to work. Yeah. You have to look at the school and teacher staff have to look at the parents like everybody's trying to do their best. It might not be how I do things. It might not be how I realize it would work to get the best out of school, but they're doing what's best to prepare their child for the world that they know. And so then I'd be able to use that information and say, okay, well, this is the world that you know, but I'm giving your child the opportunity to explore what they want to do and to get the tools so that they can do that. So it's not just what you know, and we can work together on that. And some more specific things that I've seen work. I worked for an after school program that was like 8, like we were meeting until 8 p.m. So we fed them dinner and everything. And the director of that program started doing positive phone calls home. We didn't do negative phone calls home. When we first started doing that, the parents would, hello, you know, like they were already on a defensive because they used to only hearing like they was messing up. As soon as we started doing the positive phone calls home, we had no problem getting in touch with parents. We had no problem when there was something to invite parents, a parent meeting, any of that type of stuff. Everybody showed up because they cared about their children. We knew that they cared about them. And we did this with our even more difficult scholars. You know, like it was so crazy to see because every other place that I worked is like parents don't want to be involved. Parents don't do this. Parents don't do that. As soon as we just started giving positive experiences, as soon as we made sure we had quality food at these things, like the basics. And now that I am a parent, I'm like, wow, how do we expect so much extra time? Like as a parent, you're already working all day. Even if you're working in the house, it's so much stuff to go into working in the house, having to cook, clean, maybe do a little hustle or whatever. Then, you know, it's so much stress and all of that. And to talk down on people that's not able to fully manage all that, not knowing what their support system look like, their finances look like, not helping in that way. And I think that schools have gotten better in a sense of doing wraparound services, you know, doing food giveaways. My son's school, because it's a community school and it's one of the 21st century schools, like they give out diapers and they give out all of this stuff. And it like, that's made a big difference. And I've noticed now, like, they were very adamant. They don't do enough engaging parents. And they were very adamant about not having a PTA. But the little things they've done during the day, like having like parent breakfasts and stuff, recognizing that like as a parent, especially of young children, I might work nights or I might not be able to do these after school things, but I made my during the day available. And so having more of those during the day events, you know, not assuming everybody has a 9 to 5 and so everybody is available at 6 o'clock, you know. These are just a lot of different things to build community and build that trust. That trust is totally gone. It doesn't really exist, and I think that's rightfully so. You know, you're talking about people who also went through 12 years of schooling and can't say how it's helped them beyond they met their best friends there. You know what I mean? So it was like, if that's the only takeaway after you spent the majority of your life, your early life, then there has to be a true holistic transformation that actually involves everybody.
Real quick, can I get a age range of the children that you're currently your children that you're currently homeschooling?
For everybody or just me?
Everybody.
My children are still very young, so they're just 2, 4, and 6. And then, of course, like I work with other families that join them along because that's how they best learn, and that's up to age like 12. At this point.
My children in particular, my children are Milan and Corrine's children. My children are my homeschool scholars are 10 years old. I'm sorry, 11. Oh, he would kill me if you knew I said he was still 10. 11-year-old Bakari and 12-year-old Professor Makai.
Right.
Shucks. The boy had a birthday May 2nd. I am off my game. I don't know my children's ages. No, my children are 11 and 13. So they're middle school age children. And along with the collective, we engage and teach infants. Infants learn. Yes, they do. You speak to them, you read to them, you talk to them, and you communicate with them. No Google Gaga. Speak words to these babies. They understand words. Don't Google Gaga your babies. Don't dumb your babies down. They understand language. So the children that we work with are infants on the teat to 13 and 14-year-olds. I have a ninth grade scholar in my residence right now, my nephew, my baby boy. But I mean, like, so that's the age range. And also my 18-year-old is still learning. She's still learning. So I have scholars from elementary to, high school. Hi, baby. Hi, Shay.
Of your children.
So we work, like she said, in the collective. They go from babies all the way up. Well, through the platform, we actually work with programs that go into adulthood. So the program that we work in partnership with Shawna through is the IBA, which you see, the Indigenous Business Association. And so that is the we work to unify home root ancestry, African inspired children. And we look to encourage and enrich a whole rites of passage platform from babies all the way to adulthood.
Yeah, so different mentors actually come on and each take a segment, particular age groups. We work on what it means to graduate into each other's classroom or age group brackets so that we're meeting the requirements at all times. And so we also are able to produce and have scholarship building programs. We're mentors into a scholarship building program through a merit badge concept that we've come up with and that we utilize. So we involve and we encourage mentors, parents, or professional mentors to come in and to offer these resources to our babies so we can continue to reach all ages to the rights of passage.
So this is exactly the concept of support that we were talking about. I mean, we've identified this to be a problem a long time ago. And so we've kind of, for about 4 years now, right? Yeah. I would say.
Time flies.
Yeah, that we have really been trying to build a collective of brown and Black educators from unique, different, and diverse backgrounds, learning styles, education, to come together as a support system and a support network for parents, for families, everyone who's struggling, who feels like they're alone. It's socially emotional. It's spiritually enriching. We go into African spirituality. We talk about how your chakras need to be cleared and what it means to meditate. and just the value of bringing parents the support, along with supporting the educators too, because everyone is a person. And so recognizing, I know parents that are teachers, so it's really not putting a label on them, because then it becomes a us versus you kind of thing. And instead of looking at everyone as an individual, that way it's a we are trying to do this. We
Yes,
support.
village, community.
Are here. Yes, we are a community.
No one needs to feel alone during this transition to what is our new norm of virtual learning, of virtual classrooms and everything like that. And I just can't get that out of my head. Mia, I think it's absolutely ridiculous that they would require children to sit in their homes in uniforms. My children learn in their boxer briefs. They learn they can wear a Black Panther costume for all I care. I don't care what you're wearing. I'm worrying about if are you absorbing this information? Are you receiving this information? Are you able to process this? Mm-hmm. Do you have clarity in your understanding of the information I presented to you? Can you repeat it back to me?
Absolutely.
Can you display it in a creative way? Like, you don't have to write a paragraph. You can draw a picture of it, paint it. Let me see it in a slideshow. Children have devices. Let them make movies about, instead of requiring pen and paper, which is difficult for some children because of their abilities or special needs. Find another way for your child to communicate. There are multiple ways to communicate. Me being an artist innately, and my children have propensity towards the arts, I use art. I mean, art is the way that I open them up. Music and art, because I have like I said, I have children who were nonverbal, being neurodivergent on the autism spectrum. One child in particular, now you cannot get this child to not express themselves. You cannot get this child to shut up, and that's a good thing, because I wanted this child to have the throat chakra open. This is the type of studies we study at home. We talk about aligning the chakras. We talk about the pools and meridians. We talk about getting our energy right. We breathe and we meditate, so that I won't be like, I don't want to regress into that old way of doing things, because we have a method of beating information into the children. It's 4 apples here. If I take 2 away, how many apples? And the child says 4. And look, this is true. Black parents, I said it's 4 apples. If I take away 2, what is it? And the child still says the wrong answer. I know you see these apples. You yell and scream and holler. And guess what? They don't care how many apples there are now. They just want to get the heck away from you and your energy. They have completely shut down. And they might they might get nervous. They might, we have to get away from all of that old antiquated methodology of putting information into people's heads, because you can't put it in their heads. They have to their minds have to be open to receive it. No one's going to receive anything from you if you give them a certain energy and they shut down. And I have
they already know it.
Say that again, honey.
A lot of times they already know it. Like that reminded me of a funny story. I had my daughter and her friend. At the time, I guess they were both like 5, and I'm trying to teach them math. I think we were trying to do subtraction, and like 5 minus 1. What is it? Like, if I had 5, we take away 1. Like, can you count it? And they're just like, And so but then a second later, I tell you no lie, a second later, they got in an argument. And let's say it was 5 cookies. And they was just like, it was 5 cookies here. And you ate 1. So there was only 4 left. And just like, I was like, oh, so y'all do know how to subtract. But it wasn't just one. I was like, so you do know how to do this math problem. But it just, so I had to like take a step back. And I was like, all right, sometimes when you try to overly simplify it and put it in this form, it's kind of like, what am I even doing this for?
Isn't it the same?
Or rather looking at it as I learn a different pedagogy from every school year, because you have to update it and refresh it. But learning how to rather be able to pull back, give them the information and let them sit in it. And I think the big argument against homeschooling versus traditional learning is just how the student retains the information. And one of the things I want to go towards next is for me a lot of the myths and miscommunication about both sides in terms of homeschooling children are brats. They're normally, quote unquote, allegedly, they are brats. They are socially awkward. They are not in tune with learning and being able to relate to people, their peers. They're more in adult conversation mode. Can you kind of dispel and kind of highlight some of those things that are myths, but there are a lot of truth in those miscommunications?
Brats. I mean, like I already expressed what it was. I have free thinking children.
Mhm.
They children are a product of their parents. Children have a lot of traits of their parents. If you're a free thinker and you're free to express yourself, why are you stifling your child's expression? So I don't consider some of these myths that children who are homeschooled will be out of the cast or out of the loop, whatever. I personally don't want my children to be engaged in certain other things that are occurring in the environment and outside. I mean, I think that they may be sheltered a bit, but at the same time, I am exposing them to other things right within this concrete environment that would go otherwise unnoticed if we didn't take our little field work trips and our little walks and explore other things. If having children that are socially awkward means that my children are not just only talking about whatever some rapper is saying, and having a niece, a little girl or child in our collective that's not just trying to twerk and imitate something that she's watching on television because she's not being engaged at home and she's left her own devices and just watching all kind of crap and not being monitored, which a lot of children are doing. Children do whatever they want in the society with electronics. There's no electronic monitoring. So to say that a child who is homeschooled will be out of the loop because they're not conforming and following the trends of basic standard scenarios that are occurring around us. And I hate to say basic, not being shady, but it is. Some of the stuff people allow their children to do is basic. I mean, where's the engagement? Where's the involvement? Where's the gearing your child towards free thinking and stepping outside of the box and being different? Where's allowing your child to accept being different? Okay, if you're socially awkward, I'm a nerd. Everybody knows it from Arundel Elementary 164. I'm a nerd. I wore big window pane glasses. I still wear glasses. There is nothing wrong with being different. I encourage my children to think outside the box and be different. If you're socially awkward, if you're considered different, good, because you don't want to be an automaton. You don't want to be a basic automaton just following, what somebody sets in order for you to do. I want my children to think for themselves. All of my children are completely comfortable being exactly who they are and being different and being operating outside of the so-called normal paradigm. What is normal anyway? Normal is relative. Normal is the space that you create for yourself. My normal is different from everyone else's because I am a unique individual who is engaging with other unique individuals. So my entire family dynamic is different. I guess we're all kind of socially awkward because maybe we won't fit in with some of the things that other people consider entertainment. That's, to me, boring, basic, and benign. It doesn't excite me. I don't have an interest in it. And I want my children to be the same way. If you don't have to do what somebody else is doing or have what everybody else in the group is doing influence your thinking, even if it's different, even if you stick out like a sore thumb, do what you feel. To thine own self be true. This is what I teach my children. When he was 9 years old, I asked my professor Makai, who is the baby who really displays most classic autism symptoms. However, he's now verbal. He has a certain language delay, or which you may not understand some of the things that he says because some things he cannot pronounce, some consonant and vowel blends. But the child is a genius. How dare I try to make him, Makai, do this because other people doing it. Don't wear your clothes like that because people are going to look at you. No, you don't do that. You'll kill your child's spirit. And a lot of people raise these children to be hip hop kids and to conform and, this is what everybody around the way do. So we're going to do this too. I don't care what everybody around the way doing. Shawna Divine and Five Tribe are going to do what they feel like doing if it's not bothering anybody and if it's something that's conducive to our collective growth and learning. we're going to be our awkward, odd, unique self. So it may be something to that because we're nonconformists. And people who are conforming and who are so programmed and used to being a certain way and following whatever the social norms are, which is to me a bunch of pretentious, I'm not going to say it on the broadcast, but I think but I mean, like, this is just like a truth, but at the same time, it's not really an offense. You know, it's not really something that I would take offense to either. I take it as a badge.
Anybody else? Can you kind of speak on some of those myths and misconceptions or miscommunications in terms of how your students are or how they will become based on them being homeschooled?
Leaders.
I think
leaders.
I think the biggest misconception or the biggest myth is that you're just at home. When really everybody shapes their experiences differently. Like some people do have a special room set up where that's the classroom and all that type of stuff. But you know, most homeschooling families are part of collectives. They go to museums a lot. They go to we go to libraries, all kinds of things. But the biggest concern for most people is like, oh, how are they socialized? And of course, like when I share with people that was my plan and that's what I'm doing, Che, what's going on? But like, and I had to grapple with that a lot. And especially again, that was my concern from the beginning. But then when I really thought about it, I was like, I don't really want my children socialized in that way. Children are constantly learning, they're constantly being socialized. So I'm recognizing, okay, they're being socialized only around people that care about them, only around people that have their best interest at heart. They're being socialized by people who in community where they've seen them grow, so they know that when they're acting up, I'm not making up a story like, oh, their parents must be on crack or something, but that they're hungry at the moment and I can ask them what's wrong, or somebody hurt their feelings and we missed that. So when I thought about it that way, and there's social, and one thing that we keep missing that's a huge benefit of community learning and home learning is that we did kind of say it, somebody said it, but that multi-age, like we find that children learn best when they are around different ages, and it's beautiful to see, you know, when the older ones are helping guide the younger ones, and they operate with a larger sense of maturity. So even like with Shawna boys, if I'm just working with her boys and boys that are in their same age group, they might be bouncing off the wall. As soon as a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old enters the picture, they're suit and tie, you know, and they're sitting down with them and they're teaching them how to do something. They're showing them something they created, and it gave them that opportunity to be a leader. And then it's that same thing with the little kids. The little kids, they only in their age group, they're bouncing off the wall. Now they got somebody a little bit older that they a lot of times respect and trust more sometimes than the adults. That's why I always have peer learning, even in the classroom. Then they're like, they see something closer to them and it's like, oh yeah, I can do this, I can work on this. If they could do it and they're small, that means I can do it too. And that's the kind of socialization I want. No lie, to get my daughter used to a public school environment, I had her go to the camp that they were offering. And so this was her first, like, you know, it's not like she never was in some sort of classroom, but it was her first public school experience. And she wanted to be white by the end of the summer.
Wow. No,
white. Yeah, she asked if her skin would turn white eventually because, you know, the books and the TV and all that type of stuff, like, that's what it is. And I told her the only way that's the case is you have some sort of disease, you know, and that's something that I've had to combat and battle. I've had to combat and battle, like her wanting certain toys and stuff just because they talk about it in class or school, or just because she saw a YouTube video. So I've had to be strong and be strong and maintaining her strong sense of self, or their strong sense of self, to only want. And it's made me reflect a lot. I've always been my own person. I've always been unique, but it's made me realize those times where I always remember this. I was in the 2nd grade and I was so excited about this outfit I had. And I, you know, was so excited about it. And I went to school and somebody teased me about it. And I don't think I ever wore that outfit again. You know what I mean? I like it.
I can relate.
Like,
That's
who
crazy.
cares?
You know I should work because
You don't
being an
think
individual,
about-
you still want to be accepted.
Yeah,
You know,
you don't
to
realize
some
how
degree,
much that
everybody
you
does. To some
that.
degree, if we're honest, yeah.
And how much has informed you into adulthood, and also how much like you've lost yourself, and now you have to go through this whole journey of finding yourself. And it's interesting to see now that everybody has had to be home, like how they can't get that instant validation from people at the workplace. They can't get that. A lot of times when we're talking about educating our children, it's all through the ego. You know, both of my children who are in school, birthdays are in December. I was trying to figure out if I wanted them to be in a higher grade or be in the grade that they're supposed to be in. And everybody was like, you know, you would want them to be a leader in their class. You want them to be better. And it's like, yeah, it feeds my ego as a parent that they're going to be more advanced than everybody naturally because they're older. Mm-hmm. But is that challenging them? No. Like my daughter went in doing first grade math. Now she's doing math that my 4-year-old could do. And that set a lower standard and bar, you know? So it's like, just because I put them in school, I still have to work hard to maintain these things, you know, have them maintain their strong relationships and strong friendships. Another thing, and this is the last thing I'm going to say, one thing that we nurture in school that we don't talk a lot about that's a little problematic is, again, that whole, like, you have to automatically listen to authority and adults because they're adults. And that creates this environment of abuse. You know, a lot of abusers are coaches and school therapists and just like all of these things. And if you're telling children very early, just off the basis of them being an adult, you're supposed to listen to them. Then when that adult says, come on, close the door, you know, doing all of this and creating this system of shame and creating this thing, it makes it easier for that to happen. And it's not saying that doesn't exist on these outside groups or whatever, but when you create that strong foundation and that strong foundation of trusted adults and trusted community, and that can happen within the school system, but again, that means that's where that relationship building has to come in. I have to, as much as I've been more hands-off than people expected me to be, their teachers know my name and face. They have my phone number. We've had full conversations. I know my child well enough that I can tell them exactly what to expect. But at the same time, I'm open to listening to what they say and who my child is in that environment. But I know that that's not the end all be all. I know what's just like, all right, I ain't paying attention to that. And what is, you know, I can share with them. This is how you could get better out of them. You know, this is what they're used to. This is what they're accustomed to. And this is what will work. And then we're going back and forth. And that's, again, where that respect comes in. But yeah, everybody is different. And there's no way that people do it all the same. Everybody has different reasons about why they decided to homeschool. There's no uniform way of doing it. And that's kind of the beauty of it.
So thank you, Mika. We have give me 1 second. We have 15 more minutes left because this could go on another 24 hours if we let it. But I have one final question, and then I want each of you to give your overall viewpoint and perspective on homeschooling versus traditional learning, the benefits, pros and cons. But my final question to you is, how can we support the school system at this moment in time and bettering that support? I'm a teacher at one of those new spanking brand new schools that are adopting smart classrooms and the non-traditional ways of supporting children through their education and trauma and so forth. But I come from schools that didn't even have a working chalkboard, not to mention technology and stuff. But I see the difference. I feel the difference, and I feel privileged as a teacher being in that environment, having things at my disposal that all the years before I didn't. So I'm going to go around and ask, how can you all, because some of you were affected and weren't affected by this, but how can we support the school system, not just the parents in this moment, but the school system at large? I'm going to send this out to many of the principals that I've worked with and a lot of the organizations, teaching artist organizations that I support, because a lot of them, we realized the work that they were not putting into preparing our children and the resources. We just learned that Governor Hogan kind of went away from or did not vote to give schools more resources. Seeing what this pandemic did in terms of increasing the gap between students that are on the more wealthier side versus the latter. So how can we, or what message can we give to the school system to improve education, relationships, the engagement, all of those things that make up the body of an educational system? In your opinion, I know that's a big statement, but in your opinion, what advice and support can we give the school system at this point, at this juncture, to kind of help them improve or do better for our students at large, like across the board, not just our individual families? So anybody can tackle that one, right?
Sheesh, that is a loaded question. Who wants to jump in? Look, I'm only the first up with my big mouth.
I feel like
how can they provide support to the students? I think that
just the school board in general, not just the students. The students will benefit, and they're the purpose for it, but the system. How can we improve the system?
I mean, within the system of I understand the classroom has to have structure, but some schools allow children to go outside in the morning and to just get some free time. The schools that my children came from, they did that. The children had time in the morning to just get out some energy. That would help, relieve some of the fidgeting, or, children went through a routine and they got to come in. It's springtime, it's bright and sunny. They get excited to see all their peers. Let the children just release first. And what about implementing mindfulness into the classroom? Because then the students' energies will be balanced and the teacher will have a better time. When I'm in home with my children, children keep everything real and authentic. It's not going to be anything scripted when you're dealing with children, So someone wakes up in a bad mood. We're going to breathe. They should have breathing in the schools. My role in the collective is that when a child is having a crisis or experiencing some sensory, I've done this with Mia's babies. I've done it with my babies. I've done it with Olu's babies. What's the matter? You want to step away for a minute? But that doesn't mean that you're going to be put out of the space. Just if we had a volunteer in the classroom or a paraprofessional in the classroom that had a gentler approach to that child that was experiencing a crisis, it might go well for all involved if you approached them with just a little bit more. What is the term? You catch more flies with honey. Have you ever heard that term? Be a little sweeter, be a little kinder, be a little compassionate and understanding. Maybe this baby didn't sleep, but I think that if they implement more compassion, if they implement more in engaging the child on a one-on-one level, if the student support staff were trained differently, instead of you sit down over here, why was y'all fighting? Come on, that's not going to solve anything. Process and have them meditate together, maybe have them. I think that will help relieve some tension, because when the child returns to the classroom, if they return from student support worse, even more excited or agitated, or at the same level of being disruptive, then what did you accomplish by sending the child out? They just missed their time from class and they missed their work, and it creates tension between the student and teacher, because the student's going to go back in there and the teacher's going to have the same attitude, like, look, I'm going to send you back out. I was that child, so I know. I was the disruptive one. I was the misunderstood one. I was a fidgety one. Throughout this broadcast, if you notice, I'm just looking at Mama Mia just sitting nice and calm, and I always tell her that you're the calm one. Like, you give me balance. And I'd have moved from room to room, space to space, because you actually got me to sit for 2 hours, kind of. And if I'm an adult and I experience that, imagine children. Allow the children to move around. If you notice that your student needs a break, it would be easier on everybody involved to allow that student just move away, go let them take a break and read a book or something like that, or just stretch, yawn, stretch, breathe, and let them return to the seat and finish their assignment. I mean, because it creates a tense environment where there's conflict, and you know what I mean? The antagonistic situation. I think that might be something that maybe they want to look at implementing, doing morning mindfulness in the schools, or even during lunchtime, where they wind down, have someone maybe play the music in the background or something like that. But what I'm understanding, teachers who utilize these methods, I mean, I had a sister, Aunt Chandra, expressed that on one of her lives before, or I think it was her stats, and she was attempting, she sang to the children. She implemented these methodologies, and the children were calm, and the system came in and shut it down. That doesn't make any sense at all. If it's working, utilize it. If it's going to facilitate an ease of the environment and atmosphere in the classroom, why not use it? Our old antiquated methods are not working. But, it's pretty much the way the system was designed. The system was designed to dole out drones.
That's why you can't educate in the system.
For corporate America, because America is a corporation. And the school to prison pipeline, we take away the bells. Why are children responding to bells? They're not animals, they're people. Cows and sheep and other livestock move around at bells. The bell tells you when to go, tells you when to sit, tells you when to stand, tells you when to go outside, recess is over, ding, the bell rang. And what is that? That's hypnotism. Negate that, take that away perhaps. If whoever is listening, take that away perhaps. I mean, treat children like human beings and with a certain level of respect. I do not demand my child to respect any adult just because they are an adult. And I am not apologizing for anybody who has a problem with it. You have that problem, not me. I teach my children to respect those who give them respect. Respect is not just something you give people. You initially respect everyone as you want them to respect yourselves. But teachers, educators, faculty members, facilitator, principals. What happened to the PAL and principal? A lot of principals have been antagonistic to these children and have this authoritative power tripping thing that they do. Negate your ego and get back to the passion and the reason why you were supposedly in this field, because you want to teach children. You want to open minds. You want to open minds. This is a beautiful thing to watch your mind unfolding. I get excited to watch my children expressing to me something that they discovered on their own, or something that I taught them, and they're responding to me and reiterating and giving me feedback on what they learned and showing me something else I didn't recognize before. A lot of times us adults get caught up in ego. No child will tell me, or the teacher will say, this child is being impertinent. You will not correct me. No, but you were wrong. I've had teachers that have misspelled and botched vocabulary words. And I'm like, the nerd in me. I'm shaking my knee. I'm anxious. I'm raising my hand. You already answered. Be quiet, Shawna. It's not your turn. Don't do that to your children. I mean, put your ego to the side sometimes. I think that should be done too. Am I saying anything wrong? Does anybody disagree with these suggestions?
This is your perspective, and I respect your point of view, your perspective, because you are in this field. But I don't want to take up a lot more time because we've already been on here for almost 2 hours now. So I want everybody to get the last few moments in. I'll definitely do a second part to this so we can get more of this information out, because I think it's valuable to all of us. But I'm gonna go over to our couple over here and get their individual perspectives as well. What advice or what support can we give to the school system to help them improve?
So just bouncing off of exactly what Mama Shawna said, she everything perfectly. It's the mindfulness. There needs to be creative movement, and there needs to be social emotional learning. So I feel like most times they are not paying attention to the emotional needs of the children, and they're reacting to them as if they need to stay in a certain robotic procedures. That's not how children work. So, and also recognizing that they need breaks, movement breaks. Sitting down, being still in a classroom is hard. So recognizing that that's not how all children learn, and maybe implementing some hands-on tactile learning styles. Maybe actually having an outdoor classroom as a part of it. I know I work with some schools and helping them become environmental certified. And so that is something that a lot of schools implement They have gardens, pollinator gardens, where they teach the children outdoors. They also have outdoor classrooms where it's a nice day. You can be rewarded by going outside and actually getting the chance to learn outside. So movement, social emotional learning, and also engaging with the community. I think that last piece is very essential because I don't think schools recognize that they are within a community, and they look and they stand as a stakeholder in that community. And so parents shouldn't feel as if they are outside of it. There should be engagement with community partners in the local area. I feel like there's a lot of resistance to engagement with community members who want to be a part of the school and help support children. But just like you said, Shawna, it being in the system, they have to adhere to certain rules and regulations and restrictions. So partnering with community advocates is a way that they can kind of go around that issue without taking on the personal responsibility of being viable for certain things. Allow a third party to come in who focuses on social emotional learning, when engaging with parents and their families and teaching them these learning opportunities that are right outside their doors, but they don't even see. So.
Well said.
Okay. And so, I mean, really to follow that up, guys, and I'll try to be quick, it's kind of swift here. I think the community relation aspect is something that's huge, that's recently implemented in the schools. You're starting to see people who are community relation members who, our company, we go and we talk directly with that individual, because right now, I feel like the school systems, if you do have to maintain a certain indoctrination, you need to exercise some good cop, bad cop kind of philosophies and dip into the community organizations, Corrine, like you said, and pull out. There's so many out there who want to work and who are qualified to work with youth. If the schools become a little bit more open-minded about partnership with grassroots communities, these resources can come to them in their namesake and have them take the honor they're supposed to, while the youth can positively be impacted. So Indigenous Business Association, we have actually mapped out a plan. We have a relationship with the president of Baltimore Teacher Union, BTU, realizing there are only 10 PTAs in Baltimore. Right, I know that's your girl too, right? She was with you and us at Noir and all these other outreaches. But so you're looking at the fact she brings up a solid point, saying that there's only 10 PTA chapters in schools basically throughout the city, and so there is not a heavy engagement with parents in the school system at all, where there could be a driving force. And parents who might want to be involved, if they look around and there is no union or any kind of body or entity there, support there for what they're trying to do, they're not going to be. It's basically not a good fit for them to want to come in and do work and be progressive. And that's what we need. I look at everything like we're creating one vision, and it is a matter of puzzle pieces where everybody is their own individual unit, and collectively we can make things work. That eliminates the ego issue, because in all situations, I don't necessarily have to hold your hand. I can hold somebody's hand, right? Exactly, to accomplish the goal and demonstrate the picture that our youth need to see. So I appreciate y'all for the opportunity.
Thank you.
I love y'all.
Mia?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about like where things are going now, and we don't know what that looks like. They're talking about like AB schedules and part-time days, or having to wear a mask or whatever. And I guess my biggest point of advice is to consult with homeschooling families and online learning, because again, trying to match, like one of the things that annoyed me very much so in the beginning is like you're trying to match the schedule, knowing that students at best learn about 2-3 hours, even in the school environment. The rest is socializing, the rest is disciplining, the rest is, transitioning. And so even just create, recognizing that and operating from that versus like, how can I feel? So like a lot of high schoolers I talked to were just very overwhelmed, because they were like, we don't do this much work in school, and now you're expecting me to do this work, and I have siblings and my family, and they might still be working, or we might only have one device for multiple people. So thinking about ways that you could create activities and learning things and, develop packets or whatever that really does include the whole family. And using a lot of people got laid off immediately. You know, I represent teaching artists, and the teaching artists were never fully considered, like, especially if they're working with a third party agency. So like, how could people like that who immediately lost their jobs when the schools were closed be engaged to help support families? You know, having these people call or do like, you know, whatever works for them, finding that out. Like now, you know, you have a special account on Instagram or TikTok or something, and you're engaging so that they're, you know, seeing how they're doing, seeing what support they need, like all of that type of stuff. Like one thing that people who currently work in the system are interested in, but I thought would be cool, is if there was like, if it was a requested like in-home support. Because even like I had my youngest see his school therapist because he can be very anxious and also very stubborn, but I don't really have a problem with the stubborn part, but the anxiety part. But you know, even some of the points that they, you know, that help at home is like, all right, well, this doesn't necessarily work at home. Like I would need somebody in here like helping with these things. So again, that like just all these different ways, and that not everybody is interested in that, but like the figuring out who is and building that stronger relationship. Like right now we have no choice but to build that stronger relationship with community and operate in respect for community. Again, I saw like comments in the beginning like, all right, we set up this online thing, like, and parents not participating, that mean y'all don't care about education, and you know that's because parents on drugs, and saying all that. Like, no, it could be very simple. All I have is one phone, you know, it could be very simple. I don't have the internet. Like finding these things out before jumping to conclusions, because honestly, most of my close friends' parents were on drugs. You know, we came up in the crack era, so to speak, and they went on to get full scholarships. So you don't know somebody's, you know, like when you're actually from it, you know that contributes to a lot of stuff, but it doesn't dictate.
Right.
You're trying to say somebody's environment, where they live, where they from, all that dictates the outcome. You're already kind of setting them up for something. And the opposite is true too. Like I've seen kids who are like totally out of control, but they come from a 2-parent household or something, or their parents are gainfully employed, and their comment to them is like, you have no reason to act like this because you're from this and that. You know what I mean? Like everybody responds to things differently. We all, you know, learn differently. We all operate differently. And it's just taking this time to really figure that out. I understand this whole standardized, we have to get rid of this. You know, people fought so hard to not have these standardized tests. And now we're seeing the impact of it. We're seeing that people are not learning. We're seeing that schools aren't getting the resources that they need. We're seeing that teachers are overwhelmed because, like you said, you get a whole new system every week. And now the kids are out of school for a week or every couple of days so you can learn this new system. The teachers aren't even paying attention to these professional developments. Like, listening to the people that's on the ground, listening to the teachers say, I need this, provide them with that. Another thing that I noticed shifted that I really didn't like was if I'm teaching in a classroom, having 5 people come in and disrupting my class, taking somebody out for this or that. You know what I mean? Put them 5 people in my class and have them support me, you know, like don't be disrupting my class so you can take this person out. And then like that already diminishes what we're doing. That's saying what I'm doing is not important and not valuable. And so that respect for those who are there has to be risen. They need to stop treating our schools in particular, especially in Baltimore City, as experiments, you know, and that's exactly what happens. We're the research hub, you know, Baltimore with Hopkins being here, University of Maryland. And they say like, oh, we want to see if this new thing works out. So they implement it in our schools. And then if it works, then it goes to the suburbs and say, we found that this actually works. Y'all, you know, fully implement it. And they have a lot more consistency and follow through and all of that. When then we're like, all right, well, we got to figure out if this new system works. And they come to us and they they treat us like lab rats. So like all of that, is gotta stop. And what you said, Nate, earlier of like parents stepping up and saying this cannot be, and I understand like parent.
You guys, I'm transitioning through space.
Now that I am a parent, I really do realize
I'm transitioning through space now, even though the show must go on.
How overwhelming and how like you do use school as a babysitter sometimes. Like for a lot of parents, that is their only break. So it's like I get it. I always feel like, this is not an education, a babysitter, but it's like I get it. But like again, if we work more together, then everybody would increase the value of what happens in these different places. And even when this whole thing started, like some schools provided it. Like my daughter provide school supplies, right? But that means like I never got school supplies. Now because I do homeschool in any way, like I had my house was set. But if in this transition I got a package with pencils and this and maybe even like things to put on the wall, you know what I mean? Like resources being used that way so that, like you said, Nate, what happens in the house matches more what happens in the classroom, because it has to match for it to work. It has to be mutual respect and mutual trust for that to happen.
I really appreciate all of you, and I'm gonna say one brief thing, and then I'm gonna give you all an opportunity to promote your brand and your services and your organizations. But this conversation is necessary, and actually for the month of May, we'll be having conversations with various aspects of the educational system, and you as homeschoolers are just as much a part of that system as the teacher, the parent, the student, the administrative staff, and these conversations are necessary because as somebody I've been a teaching artist since for whenever, like my freshman year of college, and now I'm be 37 in a couple of days, and during all that time, there has been many changes and many evolutions in education, and one of the biggest things that I see are parents, as you said, Mia, is often a daycare center for parents. So the importance and significance of education for a lot, not all, but a lot of parents has become secondary to me being able to do the things I need to do during a school day. So I think this pandemic has been a wake-up call for everybody. Administrators, teachers, educators, support staff, and parents alike, and students. It's been a wake-up call in terms of what education should be, what we should be teaching, and what everybody's responsibility should be. The point of this conversation right now is I wanted everybody to really begin to think and define on or think about defining or what will be the definition of my role as a part of that system, being the community, people who don't have children as well. So I thank all of you, and I really encourage each of you to continue this conversation with your circles, with your people, with your community, because it's necessary for everybody to have that involvement. Right now, we're dealing with the census. A lot of people in Baltimore City has not done their census, so that will be so next school year will be a direct reflection of that, and that we'll have even less opportunities, less resources, less platforms to be able to give our children the best education. So we're being forced to fill out this magical form that's supposed to magically give our communities money, but we know that's not, they see the people in the community, they see how many people are going to these schools, so it should not be a direct connection on whether somebody decided to fill out a form or not to tell you how many people they got in their household. That shouldn't be the determining factor of resources. And I really appreciate each of you. I've just met you two lovely people, you two individuals, and I really appreciate seeing parents as a unit doing this for their children. I respect you, brother, for being a part of this system and being an active voice in the system, because often we only see the dad when the mom is fed up. And I really appreciate that as an educator, seeing that. Mia, I know all the many hats that you wear in our community, And we got some conversations to have. And this is some of the things that I thought of in this talking. And definitely Shawna, being that active parent voice in our community in terms of giving us that Afrocentric system of being a person in general is definitely needed. And I ask you to, if you have any more questions or you need a platform or you need my support in anything, I'm always available. I'm always here. And the reason I decided to do this as a recorded show is because I didn't want all those outside influences to be able to infiltrate the conversation at this moment. I wanted each of you to have your own perspective and point of view be heard and be seen. So in me saying that, thank you again. I appreciate you. This will be every Wednesday. This particular show will air on Wednesday of the 13th. So please stay tuned and stay locked in for all the upcoming shows and information that will be given throughout May and until whenever this is back to some type of normal. So we can start with Sean and go around and give out your information, how people can contact you, and what organizations or businesses you are representing, and then we can go around and give that out.
Okay. Well, firstly, I mentioned my neurodivergence as an adult. I have a community initiative and nonprofit called Afro Aspies Rock, geared toward offering information, resources, and connections for people, families, community members, caregivers, and even teachers of people with special needs, particularly those on the autism spectrum, Asperger's, PDD, NOS, classic autism, and certain other related disorders of neurological disorders. This doesn't negate mental health because neurological health and mental health are different arenas. They're different arenas, but they kind of correlate with the behaviors that can be displayed or symptoms that can be displayed with having such diagnosis. So you can follow me on Facebook, Afro Aspies Rock. Also, I have an initiative because there's a population of youth that has been being neglected and sometimes antagonized in the school system. I know this full well because two of my pride babies I work very closely with. My own daughter, Corrine, who is she's neurodivergent on the autism spectrum, and she's also a transgender teen. What can the system do to help these children? So you can find me on Pride Moms and LGBTQ Moms in Solidarity on Facebook as well. Another entity that I'm working with, which we're having my son Bakari troubleshoot, is called different kind of smart. Oh no!
Damn it, what time?
Oh my God, my broadcast just cut off. I don't know what.
So you can go to her and then we'll bring her back in.
Well, actually, different kind of smart is exactly where we partner up. So I guess I'm gonna just fill in right there. Shawna and I have collaborated on our online platform, Different Kind of Smart, where there's no such thing as dumb, just a different kind of smart. We advocate for having unique, diverse learning styles. This is an online platform where we're trying to support families that are going through this new distance learning phase. So we are in the soft launch phase. Right now, we are looking for educators and parents and families, Sister Mia, to come and partner up, join into the platform, come and support the initiative. We're looking to just create a network that collaborates together. We're looking for a unique learning style. So on this, we have lessons, activities, live tutors that can get on whenever your child needs. This is supposed to alleviate kind of the stress that's going on families right now. And it's free for all families that have Medicaid. So we're also looking to support social emotional learning. So all of this comes with a mental health component as well.
All right, guys, and as a group and body, kind of working with a few people on this call, and again, hopefully soon to be Mia as well. And likewise, I appreciate the host here. I love the addition. The Indigenous Business Association. You can find us from our advocacy group or base, the Association of Collegiate Proactivists. You also can find us on our nationwide directory through TNBUNdirectory.com, the National Black Unity News Directory. These are all of our places that you see. These resources that we talk about are a collective of multiple 40 to 50 individuals right now who are willing to serve the community, parents, to train parents and give employment and education opportunities to make sure that we can kind of control this narrative, put it into our hands, and use our own media sources to generate the attention. So I encourage everybody to come in and become a part of this puzzle that we're building, and contribute your puzzle piece, and let us continue to just paint this vision according to how we see fit.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Please send me your information so I can add it to this broadcast in terms of your links and your organizations that you represent. And you can follow me on Facebook. Well, I hate the word follow, but send it to me, because that's my main source of communication right now. And I'll send you back my email and things of that nature. Miss Mia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My thing is Invisible Majority. Basically, we support business services to creatives and creative services to businesses in a nutshell. This year we got a brick and mortar for the first time in a minute. But of course, with everything that's going on, we haven't fully been able to operate. But I'm working on a contingency plan and making it available for people who want to use it for private use, even if they want to get out to do some of this remote learning and remote working, having a space outside of their home to do it. And it's just all about connecting people and creating that network. And so we also provide like educational services. Occasionally when school is closed, or some things that we're working on is some education opportunities and youth events. But yeah, that's it in a nutshell. I don't always sell myself well, but if you yes, InvisibleMajority.net is our Majority Be More on Instagram and Twitter, Invisible Majority on Facebook. And I try to share whatever resources are available for the spectrum of independent people.
I thank you, Mia, and I have a couple questions for you. I've been pondering on the last couple of months, so I'll definitely will send that to you in Messenger, and we can talk, or whatever suits you, because I just took 2 hours of your time, but I appreciate it. And whatever I can do to support you, I'm here. I'm a neighbor of sorts.
Yeah.
Please keep me in mind, and I wish you well in all that you do, and thank you again.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad we were finally able to do this, because I know we've had some trouble. And like I said, I had this terrible headache, so I was struggling a little bit. But thank you for inviting me, and I'm glad it worked out.
And let me know whenever you need me to reciprocate, because I'm here, ground zero, boudoir. So just let me know.
All right, dope.
Peace
You
out.
have the rest of your day.
You too.
All right.
So this has been our first edition of Let's Do Lunch with myself, Mr. Couser. I am making a way out of no way. Thank you to all of our guests today, and their information will be listed in the description of this broadcast. So I thank everybody that participate. Special thank you to Nancy Proctor of the Peel Center. We're doing this in conjunction with their Be Here Stories storytelling program at the Peel Center that I've been working with over the last couple years. And I appreciate everybody who will be tuning in and for tuning in and continuing to share this message. Share this to many parents, many administrators that you know, in terms of people who need the message, who want that option of homeschooling. We didn't get into a lot of the conversation, but throughout the month of May, we'll be spotlighting various homeschooling groups and organizers and parents. So if you know of any, please send them my way, and I may continue this conversation on. It's a really important conversation to me over education, being someone who has been in the education system. And again, thank you. So our sponsor for this process has been the Pill Center. Again, shout out to Nancy Proctor and all the many creatives that work through the Pill Center. Go to their website, thepillcenter.org, and you can find us at www.the/artistexchange.com. Peace out. Enjoy your day. Stay safe. Love somebody. Peace out.